This conference will now be recorded.
The time is 6:33. This is the Tilton Planning Board meeting for August 10th, 2021. We'll do a roll call vote of all board members.
Christine Dembitsky.
John Scanlon.
Frederick Simon.
Tom Damon.
The first order of business is the Old Yankee Woodworks Planning Board case 2-1, which will be continued until zoning is it will be continued until the next meeting. So entertain a motion for that.
Motion to continue the Old Yankee Woodworks PB 21 lot 8.
It should be 21-8.
That's my one, that's you.
Okay.
I'll second that. Oh.
Till 9, till September 1.
Let's see.
The next order of
All in
business.
favor?
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Next order of business is planning board case 21-12, U-Haul Company. Site plan review, conditional use permit.
So on your table is some of it in your packet that I gave you. Again, North Point's review, their second review in response to conservation as well as planning board. You also have our engineer Steve Peach's comments relative to that revised plan that was submitted. And the third piece you have is from DES regarding their AOT permit. So those are the two documents. As well as a revised plan which came in the document.
I'll take a second. Read over
Just review it all.
the new stuff.
Yeah. Email.
Oh,
I just want to give it all in writing again here.
Yeah.
And the DES I sent as well, John, I can't remember. I think I DES comments. Yeah, anyway, they're there. They're just there. Yeah, sure. Right? Yeah.
I recommend Jeff Lewis from North Point Engineering, right, capital from
We'll just put the microphone here. We can put it here.
So we were before you folks last month with this application. You had a pretty thorough application, but it was new to you folks, so you wanted to have some time to take a look at it a little bit more. And we had at that time had a first review for Mr. Keach, the engineer, which was multiple pages long, and we had yet to meet with the Conservation Commission, which we were scheduled to follow, and we got the review. So I think that the board felt that we would like to wait to accept the application as complete until tonight, and open public hearing, hoping we could get some of the outstanding comments addressed. So I think we've done that. We did resubmit the line plan. That's all comments we received from the Conservation Commission and from Mr. Keach. We submitted those plans that was back on July 30th. Mr. Keach has finished his second review of plans and we're down to just a few technical comments that he has on the plans, which are very minor from my perspective. He's just the comments portrays in the plans, one the construction details, and one that are on the plans, and one that is mislabeled. So we're hoping that from an engineering perspective, this is some more comfort to you folks to move forward today. We did it with the Conservation Commission. They had a number of comments. They did provide an email to the board as well, summarizing their comments. So we addressed those the best we could in our attempt to get material back to you, back to you. So we have a cover letter going through all of those comments. Happy to go through any of them. Or just answer questions. A lot of the highlights of the Conservation Commission comments. They had requested that we provide stormwater calculations for a 100-year frequency storm with the town right to the state, we only look at 50-year storm. So we provided that in the packet. I don't think the Conservation Commission has seen this material. They have met since we were last with them. We just emailed that to them today, and done it today. So they probably want to see that again, look at that, see the interest and comments. We did ask if they wanted us to come back to visit with them. They said we need to schedule time at this time, but they looked at the comments, they just want to make sure that comments made it to the planning board and made it to the BDS. So I think we've addressed them. I mean, they'll obviously get a chance to look that over. If they want us to come back and do that, we'd be happy to do that. There were no issues with the Conservation Commission that we took any issue with, so we could, so we can work with them if there's any more comments there. We did receive comments from the state on our alternate terrain permit application just in the last week. So I had a chance to review those. They're very straightforward comments again. Nothing that's going to affect the design a whole lot. We would normally at this point revise the plans again to address if there's any comments to make from folks from the public. We do another round of revisions that address those issues. At the same time, we're still waiting on comments from BDS wetlands, which is well application and with water text. They may have comments coming to us that we could really well. So ideally, we would kind of address everything all at the same time, depending on what the purview of the board is tonight. I think we would just want to take any remaining questions. Hopefully, they'll be accepted as complete from them. The one thing I do want to point out from a site perspective, that we incorporated in was some comments from the planning board and the Conservation Commission about landscaping. We identified and related to the landscaping proposed in part of the building. It's kind of hard to see probably from that far away, but we did add some low planting in front of this small retaining wall we have the front here. We had a kind of paved area here. We incorporated a little green space. We had a tree and some planting right in the front here. And where we could, just like right around the edge of the building, just to get something in there, just low landscaping, which I think is what we were being asked to do, without taking up too much space that we use snow storage and parking. So we did reduce the pavement width in the front, about 5 feet, just to get a little area, additional area in there. And it still works for the maneuverability and everything else we need to do. So that's the one, really the only significant change, which I would call very significant. The rest of the changes were labeling and drainage related. The Conservation Commission had asked us to water separated catch basins, so we added that. There's another grading plans now. There's a detail of the detail sheets for that to install all the catch basins. So it's more technical stuff on the design plans, which has all been addressed. And again, the strategic review that as well. The lighting plan we revised, we had 20-foot highlight poles, and we only had 15. So that's one of the comments. We have a disabled light schedule on
They have 3 on pencil.
so we just need to correct the number. But we revised that, so we can find it. The septic was one of the other issues. We have this weird situation down here with the septic, where we have an existing septic system that's failing out in the parking lot, so we need to replace that. At the same time, we need to enlarge it because we have a little bit more flow coming from this building than just one bathroom in there. So we're trying to replace it in its existing location, make it a little bit bigger, but we're running into a zoning issue there. Whereas when that was originally put in, there was just a 75-foot setback from this wetland down here, but now there's kind of a 125-foot setback. It really only applies to new systems or systems being enlarged, which would be this one. So we've slid the leach field over so that it's further away from the wetland than the current system. The current leach field is. The current leach field is 75 feet. We slid over to 100 feet away, and any of the expanded system portion of the system is outside of the 125-foot town setback. So we feel like that meets the zoning. I think what Steve's comment was spirit of the ordinance. Ultimately, the town building inspector has to sign up our septic application, but we submit as a building inspector. We just want to make sure we run the zoning violation before we ask the board to approve the plan. So I think we're good with that, as long as we get the septic approved by the town and the state, which would be additional.
On the septic, because our ordinance says that if you're going to enlarge the septic system, I have to the exact wording of it.
Yep.
So you have to go to ZBA to get them to approve. It's not our purview to,
Yeah.
do that. I think it's great. That's a great solution for it. The tank will be there, but all the leach field's gonna be, way that.
So the way that we're designing it now, and we're trying to avoid going to the ZBA, because we already went to the ZBA, and we had to go back, we would, but we can design it such that we don't need to. We have if we're strictly replacing, we could think of it as two separate systems. We're just replacing the fail systems here. I think we're allowed to replace that fail system where it is. Because we're not enlarging it, and we're not building a new one, we're replacing a failed system. So we're allowed to do that in that perfect place. So we could replace that system right there and build a new system for this building anywhere outside of that.
Okay, so two systems instead of one.
Well, that's what we could do to meet the zoning. So what we've done is we've built a system so that it's kind of straddled at 145 feet. So the tank for this building stays over here. There's a separate tank for this building, it's well outside of 125 foot setback. But this is the 145 foot setback right here. But the actual leach field kind of straddles it so that 50% is on one side, 50%. That's just a convenience thing for the perspective of them and also one area, not just split it up in different areas and one pump system, but meet the spirit of the ordinance in that we're not increasing the size of the leach field within that 125 setback. Any enlargement of that is happening outside of that. So that's the way we designed it. If we need to split it into two systems, and we can do that. So that's why we wanted to submit it to get Mr. Keach to review it, since he's the one that commented on it in the first place. And I think that from a process standpoint, the planning board has the ability to, or whoever the town is.
So the planning board can deny completeness or deny the application and require you to go back to it.
Sure.
So that's really what the planning board said. Or they can say, yeah, this does meet the spirit. It is, as you explained, everything new is in the 125 foot. You're placing in kind of it. And that's the interpretation that you're taking. And I think Mr. Keach said he thought this was his opinion, because he can't speak for the planning board, was that it met the spirit of the ordinance and asked the planning board to concur.
Right, yeah.
I think that, but the authority lies with the planning board.
That's right. So depending, if you think it would not meet the spirit of the ordinance, then you have two choices: either revise it again, and I'll tell you how we do that, or we go to the zoning ordinance. So our feeling is meeting the intent of that ordinance by not expanding the system.
So it's something, the
How the ordinance is where you remember the ordinance.
ordinance for the, so it's in.
Regardless of, whether it's an interpretation of, we have to make sure we do it, so that you're covered. And I'm sure they would approve it. I mean, personally, I would say yes, that sounds great, but it's not my purview to determine that.
Well, it is a purview to the other thing that has to be, you have to some.
Right, the entire board has to decide whether you're sending
Yeah.
it back.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you have,
So
I think that's,
what's the ordinance?
It's in the wetlands conservation.
yeah, you want me to get the ordinance? for you?
Yeah, if you could read that. Teach me the statement on this.
Yeah, it's in the teacher's notes. Yeah. He might even say where, he might mention it.
Yeah, section 14.7.
Yeah, no, 14.7, no septic tank or leach field may be constructed or enlarged for a more intensive use closer than 125 feet to any residence. So it's one, you have it there, John?
Yeah. I think it's.
So that's a separate tank.
The septic tank or leach field may be constructed or enlarged for more intense use closer than 125 feet to any residence.
So probably each field will be within the.
Just
It's going from 70 feet to about 100 feet, so pushing it further away, replacing, but we're not, the leach field that's within 125 feet is not any larger than what's within the. So we are not enlarging the system within 125 feet. And there's no change of, the one septic tank that's out there is for this building right here, which is right here. And that's not being enlarged. There's no additional. Spending less than what's previously approved for.
You plan to connect the new building with the older revised septic system? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right now there's,
How is that going to be done physically?
so right now what happens is this building has down. Sort of connected to it. And this building has bathrooms in it that have been used for a while. It used to be a retail building. So there's a septic system. So the septic tank right here, the septic tank right here, on each building. And then they come to the chamber system. It's not like what it is now. But what's under the parking lot now is failed. So we're not, so then we should go here and do it like, I'll let us put in there.
Well,
But we're gonna do it the right way now and do, something that's under the parking lot. Unconventional. It's just, you have to design it right and build it right. So that's gonna be built right. It'll just be, these are them, keeping it in one spot. And we can, the further we go this way, the further uphill we're driving and we're getting out of, fighting water table issues, and you have to have a system above the groundwater. So we have a window in here in this area to do it. We'd like to keep it all as one system. So that's what we up with, we're not enlarging within 105 feet. Clearly, the way that that's worded, it applies to new systems or expanded systems. Doesn't apply to replacement systems, which is what we think we're doing here. If this system were fully functional and it's working fine, we'd probably just build a new leach field up here for this building, completely separate. But because we need to rebuild this whole thing, we'd like to put in a new tank, do it the right way, and get everything hooked up with water equipment and go to one leach field. So it's going to be a far superior setup. And we just kind of replace the leach field here and build something else up there. Which would be the way to do it.
So that leach field would have, what comes from one septic system and the other?
From
Resources. So it's not separate. Yeah.
Well, it's three sources, but the sources are, not high intense use.
Yeah.
I mean, the highest intense is the caretaker department, which are the shop. The rest is very low. So, I'm trying to get on this one. So what we have is we have This is below up, it's hard to see. This is the actual septic plan. So this is the new building up here. There's a septic tank, a new septic tank right there. So, another- another building here, the septic tank. This is the existing house, we're replacing the septic system, the septic tank right there. Basically in the same location as the existing one, a little bit further away from the house. And here's a replacement tank for this building. So these two are replacing tanks that are already there in the same locations, and adding a tank way up there. So this tank is far apart. That's being piped down, and these two come together right here. This one comes over here, and they all come in to it's actually a pump right here. Because at least this existing pump, existing system, that pumps it back up to the leach field, which is right there, which basically straddles the 125 right there. So our choice would be to replace this field right here, 70 feet from the wetlands, or wherever we want it there, and then just build this field somewhere else. But it makes the most sense to do something like this, to keep it all in one system, so you're replacing everything anyway. So if we can do that, you can see the area of this, each field. And this is not bigger than, based on the size of the flow, the existing system was sized for, I think, 600 gallons per day, new systems, 800 gallons per day. So right now, it's permitted out there, this leach field, which is 600 gallons each field. With the added 12 permits, we have 800 gallons. But we're basically splitting it, so we have 400 inside the 125 feet and 400 outside the 125 feet. So we're actually reducing the amount of flow within 125 feet, and we're pushing it further away from the septic. So that's what the proposal is. I don't see that we're, our position, we're not in violation of the ordinance. We're not looking for a week from the ordinance. But I think ultimately that's for you to decide, and if we're not in the ordinance, then you can ready. Someone's gonna.
Yeah, look at the leach field, there's no way to, if you have one that's, what, 600 gallons, and the other one's, what, 200? What are the numbers again?
800, yeah, this is 800 total. What he's trying to explain,
800 total.
what he's trying to explain is inside the perimeter.
Yes.
There's 400 outside, it's one tank.
Yes, but you can't split the leach field for which of the 600 gallons goes to which portion of the leach field.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we could do it, as replace what's there, maybe a 600 gallon tank closer to the wetlands. Hope that nothing ever
Well,
happens.
the idea is that, and the way I look at it, is that I can't make a decision whether it's logical or not on an ordinance that says that you can't enlarge or intensify, and you can't separate part of the leach field for only 600 gallons of vertical to this side and 200 for that. They're all connected.
Right.
So it could be more intense. So, let's say after you make your billions of dollars and they repurpose that building, yeah, that could become a more intense. And I think that they would approve it.
So you're saying, so what you're saying is that you think that we're violation of the ordinance before we submit.
I feel it doesn't mean,
So, yeah, I'm throwing this out there. So if we were to submit the application today, we were to accept the application, you could, tentatively needs to be passed based on the.
Yeah.
Put that in
Yeah.
attention.
I don't hold anything up, but
I just wanted to
I'm
make
not sure
sure.
if they would agree with you, but it's on their purview to make that decision.
Well, it's not their, it's their, what we would do is we would, if the board is going to take the position that we're in violation of ordinance, that we have two choices to go. One, we can appeal your decision to the zoning board and then find out whether they agree with you or whether they agree with us. If they agree with us, then it just goes away. If they agree with you, then we need to get a variance. So you're saying you think they give us a variance if they agree with you that it's a violation of ordinance. That's what I think is.
I think either way they.
So that's fine, that's what we need to do. Then we have a choice of either doing that or revising the plan by you. And I think what you agree with is that or what I guess I would ask is, I think you'd agree, is that if our system, the expansion component of our system is a separate leach field outside of 105 feet, that would be the ordinance. We could replace whatever was previously approved for here, we could replace in kind here. So we really have two options to do one of those two things. So I think that that's okay with us. I mean, we'd like to obviously move forward and get the public hearing open, and we can figure that out. And it's not really about it by any means. If we can do that, there's only one go ahead and split the system into two, we can do that. So that's, I guess that's fine.
So for that.
I think everything is in order, we're in the right direction. I mean, normally what we do is we would be, making sure the board's comfortable and the commission's comfortable with the wetland impacts and the bigger picture stuff here. And then be down to a short list that's maybe addressed as condition of approval, or we can come back, for you folks and wherever you feel we're at.
So we do conditions of approval, so we need to come back.
I would not, I mean, the board can do what they want. I think there's a lot of outstanding issues. I think to approve this conditionally upon the zoning board is never a good idea. And I use that as my recommendation for practice of all, not just this one, because I think it puts undue pressure on the zoning board that now they're making the decision on whether this application is approved or not. But again, it's up to the board. They certainly have the ability to do that. You can move forward with a public hearing and make comments and get everything. I think they would probably appreciate, getting some things out there. But from a staff's point of view, I don't recommend making conditional approval or zoning approval. If you believe they need a zoning approval, I actually don't feel they need a zoning approval, but again, that's not my decision. But if that is the direction you're going, I think you need to not approve this with a condition of zoning. But yeah, part of your motion should be in accepting this or not accepting it, or a motion to send it to zoning board. The entire board has to weigh in. I've only heard, one member of the board speak to that. So maybe as the chair, you need to get other.
Yeah.
Your mic is on.
I'm in agreement with John, we need to make sure that it's out of the.
I think there's more concerns here than just the leaching field or the septic system. I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask. And one of them is the removal of the wetland soils, which is in the Tilton Conservation Commission dated July 28th, 2021. Item number 1. And the other thing is snow storage and removal. And the third thing, which is we've been discussing, is the septic system. And the fourth thing is the wildlife corridor from the Fish and Game. So I see the planning details have been addressed. That wasn't a concern of mine.
You want to start with number 1?
Number 1?
So, questions. One of them was wetland soil. So typically we have these wetland pockets where we're going to be filling really. So before you fill that, you're excavating out all the muck and the normally the same part of stripping the site of the topsoil, then take out all the to from here. In these particular cases, we'll be going down much further than that, just monthly, because we're cutting into the slope here. So the material here would typically be disposed of off-site as part of the excavation of the site. You get the same contractor probably where they haul that off to. It's not something we would typically dictate here. The comment, I think, from Conservation Commission had to do with invasive species. And are there invasive species plants in these wetlands now? And if you're taking them off-site, where you can dispose of that material, you transferring the same way if you took your boat from one lake to another lake, and you pull something out of this site. I'm not sure exactly why that would apply to the wetlands, to be able to apply to like everything on that site, it's a species anywhere on that site. So I'm not aware of any condition or any, anything to make this site any more unique than any other sites doing this. If there's, I'm not aware of any practice where we specify where we're disposing of hauled fill materials coming off the site. So I think what we did say to respond to the Conservation Commission concern was that part of the notes on the plan, the construction sequence that the state outlines is that if there's invasive species found on a site, you need to call the state, you need to identify it, it needs to be properly managed either during construction or even after construction. We have a stormwater operation and maintenance plan that needs to be implemented as soon as the site is built. So we have wet detention basins on the site that could be invasive species that come on the site after it's built and functional. There's annual maintenance that occurs with the stormwater. They have to fill out the forest, they have to do maintenance. If they come across any year invasive species, then they need to do the same thing, identify. So it's one of the checklist items in the I&M plan, will be ongoing annual maintenance of invasive species, and be documented. So that's the way that gets addressed during construction, is that if they're identified, they need to call and notify the state. If they're identified in the future, they need to call the state, identify them, and then it gets handled appropriately depending on what the species is. So that's how we responded in our summary, our letter back, identifying that that's what happens. They contacted the state, AGS exotic species program consultation on their properly identified. So I think your question about the wetland material has to do with that in the Conservation Commission. The second comment was the one that comes from the wildlife habitat study. So we're required by the state now to provide wildlife habitat study on any project that needs an alteration grading permit. So we had a wildlife biologist do that for this site. And that report has been submitted with our wetlands, with our alteration trade permit to the state, to Fish and Game. So Fish and Game has to review that, and they have to basically approve our plans before the state will show alteration trade permit. So that's in process now as part of the alteration trade permit. We haven't received it to Fish and Game. We're not overly concerned about any issues they would have based on the results of the wildlife habitat study. Usually it's adjacent to more significant wetlands. They may have more concerns and looking for us to sometimes have biodegradable material in the erosion control, not having relevant plastic in the erosion control mats. They don't want snakes to get stuck in their small critters. Sometimes they don't like sumps and catch basins because things can fall in the catch basin, they can't climb out. So those are all things we prepare to address. We don't finish the design until we have the wildlife habitat study. So if there's recommendations from the wildlife biologist, we can incorporate those in the plan. In this case, there wasn't anything significant. It was, we've already incorporated in the plan. That's what the Fish and Game will be looking for. So again, any approval received from the planning board would be subject to our state permits, which would include final Fish and Game sign off. As long as it's like septic, which we just talked about.
Yeah, we discussed it, but the other one is the snow storage and removal.
Oh, yeah. So if anyone was concerned about snow storage, and again, on sites like this, it becomes where can we manage the snow before we have to move it from the site. So on any commercial property, we specify in the plans that the snow storage exceeds the site, they responsible for removing the site. They'll remove it anyways if it starts infringing on their operation. So we've identified in the plan some snow storage areas where we could fit it in the back. There's a paved area here where Corona uses a turnaround. We've identified snow storage in that area in the winter, and some over in this area over here. Conservation Commission, I think, is mostly concerned about snow storage being dumped or right into detention basins, areas like that. So that's why we don't indicate any in the detention basins here. And that's normally how we would address snow storage. Again, that's something we just added to the plan.
One of my concerns about snow storage and removal is the use of salt or calcium chloride, which could affect the downstream wildlife, flora and fauna. So, I mean, if there's something that you can do to, to mitigate that would be nice. I don't see how you can get around not using salt, but I mean, there's got to be some kind of a separator or some kind of a place where at least it goes into the system gradually. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, salt's a tricky one because it's not a great way for us to separate that out once it gets into the water. The way you normally manage it is there is a de-icing program as part of the operation maintenance plan, so they got to keep track of their de-icing and what they'd be encouraged to do. And we haven't talked about this a lot, but is have a certified snow program for the de-icing on site. So the state has a.
Can I chime in? I'm sorry. What do we do now on the roads?
Well, it's a big,
No, but my thing is like, and this is where we're adding more and more and more. We're touching a lot of these subjects. We're doing, well, I just want to speak my mind on this.
Well, what we do on the roads is the protection of life and property.
Understand, you use salt and sand mix now, don't you? Which you actually spend more, I've been on this property a lot watching snowstorms. I've done a lot of plowing myself. And they salt this hill tremendously. There's more salt coming from your town employees, whoever's salting,
It's not our town.
whatever it is, state, than I would even
We
put
don't,
on this.
we don't have any control over that.
I understand, but we're worried about salt on this small parking lot here compared to this big hill that they come and salt and put everything everywhere there. And now we're just trying to, like, I don't, no offense, I'm gonna chime in, but do a plan of salting or it's like, we're hitting a limit here. Like, you guys are pushing back more. I feel like you guys don't want us. And I'm just saying, I'm giving my point of view. I watched this, and it's pretty rough on this hill. They salt, because people slip and slide up and down that hill. More salt on that road than I would even use in this parking lot. And that's my perspective on that. Like, we need to, we're getting a little more, so we need to add more, we need to add more. We're doing a lot now, or we'll just leave the property with a dead house, and it'll be like that forever. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to beautify this community. So I just want to give my perspective on this. It's getting a little ridiculous.
Having dealt with a lot of plans and all that with even like on the dealer and stuff like that, typically what we do is have that, if you're going to plow the snow, that's plowed onto like a grassy area or something like up there as opposed to in the pond.
That's exactly.
So that it doesn't flow, like Tom was saying, so it doesn't flow.
They recommended actually, they actually helped us out, set the guardrail, because they don't want to see you damaging the wall. I'm like, I like that.
And like with the Honda dealer, we had them put signs, a request that they put signs up, no snow dumping in this area, just a small sign, so that it does get. Yeah, and that's the idea, is so it goes into the ground, and there are plants that help with some of that.
Yeah, we're not trying.
I thought, I was like, I don't want any more plans.
Yeah.
To have notebooks, state's gonna come in, town's gonna come in and ask for this, it's like,
No, it's pretty easy,
yeah.
I'm just saying, don't dump it directly into the water, so if you put on there, optics, the garden belt.
I can tell you, so I'm on one of the site, I don't want this. I don't want to look horrible in this area. This is in front of my building.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna want to go that way.
So you have, so just by comparing that, deep on that, there's different things in snow storage, right? There's people have determined the salt line and getting the groundwater. There's also sand and other stuff that we use for de-icing, and that's what we plug up detention basins. So from my perspective, I don't want snow plowed in detention basin, not because it's salt, because of sediment, traffic that be in there. And people manage snow differently, and I had an office building Auburn, and it was mud tracted the office all winter long. They sand it. Other places salt. So it's the proper maintenance, if you're sanding it, you gotta sweep it. there's some catch basins out. I mean, so it's proper all around year maintenance, which is why they have certified snow. People know what they're doing, they know the way to bounce, the conditions, the steepness of the way. So what would be good is, I know Brian about that. I mean, it'd be nice.
We have a deep catch basins.
So you have all that, if you have the right people doing it, they know what they're doing, only come down the console, they do the certified by the state, right? So that's what you need, and that's what is a good idea for planning board maybe to be encouraging. And that's what we would probably help them respond to that. And look for those aspects, who's doing the DIC and who's doing the snow management, you know, if you're doing it, you know, sort of how people who are doing it. So those are the right proper questions to ask. We haven't talked about that a lot on this site, it's an existing site, they manage it, they do it the same way, so we can talk about that. Yeah.
I don't have any more questions. I like that they've answered, all 5 sheets here.
Yeah.
You've answered each of the questions regarding conservation or the engineer. My only question is still what everybody thinks about the septic being in the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are you gonna find it complete or not?
I think we're not. Right, so, yeah, we'll make a motion for whether the application is.
I don't have it.
Should already have it last week.
Oh, I don't have it. I did look at it.
What is it that you use it for?
What is it? Yeah.
And that don't have to go to ZBA.
So if we find it complete, then we don't have to go to ZBA or they need stuff go to ZBA.
That's your, yeah, you need to make that decision.
Okay.
Complete means no further action. So
Yeah.
Well, complete means it's complete, there's a checklist, and I mean, if you see CBA as outside of the completeness, it's fine. I mean, you can find the application complete. You can have further discussion, open it to the public, and direct them to go to ZBA before you make any final recommendations. Not find it complete because it doesn't have ZBA, which I made that before, it's how we want to manage the application. Once you find it complete though, then your clock starts. So.
Zoning is part of making this complete, that is just the application. We don't have to have the zoning as part of this completeness, right? I mean, it isn't.
It's up, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, you find, you're hearing an application that has zoning requirements, so you can find it complete and move on and make it and send it back to CBA, and come back with their approval. It's certainly allowed to do that. So they have their completeness, and then they have their comments from you, and they can move on to ZBA if you are directing the ZBA, and they can address any other comments that you have for the next meeting, and you can continue for site plan review. So when's the zoning board? They would have to come back the second meeting in September 14th. So zoning must be the 21st, if the next planning is the 14th. So they can get on that agenda.
Yeah, so what we need to override the plan.
Rather than-
Want to change them much later on.
Right, so they can put in 2 leach fields, right, and leave the one there that's gonna stay at 70 feet versus 100 is what he's saying. And then he would come back on the 14th. He come back the 14th with a revised plan showing it outside the 125 and the existing one to stay where it is. Or he can go to zoning on the 21st and come back here on September 28th.
So I think I'm gonna make a motion to accept this application as substantial.
I'll second it. And the, yeah, oh, well, I would say,
What was that?
I'll discussion. All in favor?
Well,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess we'll-
Oh.
Yeah, so, the alteration and green permit. We should be saying subject to that.
Well, they haven't had their approval yet. You're not approving this, you just approve it. Because they haven't, even if they don't go to ZBA, they still have to resubmit a revised plan. That's what you're saying. They could do that for the 14th. You're writing it complete. Because you still have to rule on all the conditional use permits as well. Groundwater, over 15% impervious, wetlands, water, application street.
Kavitsky, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Yes.
Damon, no.
It's complete. So for now, you can, if you wish, continue with the discussion for site plan review. You can open it to the public, and you can make recommendations if you want to continue this, with the reasons why you want to continue it and get done with discussion.
Well, that's the public comments. Seeing as there's no public comments. we'll
Make
move
sure
on
the
to-
screen.
Yep, anyone, can hear me okay?
I think he's here for the conceptual.
Seeing there's no public comments, we'll close it to the public and move on to.
So for, I guess, my question. Yeah. So, I think what I find is that, I mean, if you have one question, but obviously you're answering, it's still a big application, I know you folks wanted to sign, kind of with it. We'll be coming back in September at some point, sounds like that time, we would certainly like that application, there's no public comment, we certainly like the application, we can get that application be approved. So we already, if there's anything else, the only thing I have right now, here is where we get that approval is to resolve the septic issue, with the zoning board decision for splitting fields. So if we came back with that resolved, in my mind, any of the other comments we have would just be basically waiting on our final permits, and we may not have final permit and by September 14th, but that would be a condition of approval only. So if there's anything else aside from this septic issue that we need resolved, we're going to get additional approval, I guess we just need to be close. We'll have to decide which path we take, if we go to zoning board or not. But either way, I think, I'm confident we can get something that will satisfy So I'd like to go back one more time. Unless there's some bigger issue. So,
I just didn't look at the plans on the snow, where you go put some guardrails or some type of.
We don't have
safety
snow
and stuff
on
like
the
that.
second.
we have the snow removal, we have the snow storage plan, so prepared the plan. We don't, we have notes about snow removal from the site, it gets, exceeds the capacity of the site. Along this area here, we have a guardrail, a retaining wall, that's snow being pushed in here. I think the conservation commission may be suggesting putting something else over here. We did not do that. We could put a guardrail or something. That's fine. Again, that could be. That's it easy. The condition. Yep. So. What happened? We have to revise the plans. No, so something to do. Stuff.
Yeah, news. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so. That makes sense. That makes sense.
And you send them the copies of. Maintenance thing. To that. You have that on there, you said. Yes. I see.
Yeah, that's it, just saw it, man.
Okay. When we do that, we just need to know, you know,
About the time.
and I don't know,
Next Monday?
so just.
I believe you need to still, and you decided where you did silence.
So Pete,
Submit it, we're gonna go other way.
Same way.
As long as we, that's what we normally do.
And look, see if
Let's make sure we- That's not what they changed it to.
conditions that were approved, using the conditions.
Permit for those three. You need to make a motion on it. You don't have to, decision. You have.
100.
And then if they don't, so they don't have to renotice this meeting. So now it would be a motion to continue to the 14th of September.
Motion to continue to September 14th.
Final case 21-12. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you guys.
Thank you, thank you. Much appreciated.
No further business. It is Robert and Patricia 47 Trust, final case 21-13. Minor boundary line adjustment. 2006 and existing code 03-7 lot 03-5 lot.
Oh, because nobody wasn't here?
Yes, that's why they can get that.
Make a motion to bring an application to the board.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone like a large plan right up here? So we talk a little bit.
So this is a public hearing.
Yes, it is.
We checked off no to others. Actually,
Talk about.
The box legend detailing all of the symbols used on the plan is blank, should that be NA? Leanne, would you say that?
I'm sorry.
This is blank legend detailing all of the symbols used on the plan.
This is much
Just for the planning board on the application, that says legend detailing all the symbols used in the plan. NA checked off.
And yeah, you said that the legends, like Christine mentioned, was that.
Yeah, she checked out, I just thought the original, she must have just missed it.
I'll make a motion to have the application for planning board 21-13 as substantially complete with the amended checkup.
I was just the, mayor's, their one signature mark.
Oh, legend.
Yeah.
So, which would be,
It should be NA. Is there a second? or any comments?
oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yeah, discussion.
Okay, so I see you 351 on here, and there's 337.
Far left.
Yeah,
Far
probably.
left.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I see it. You want to let the applicant let us know what's going on?
Yeah,
Basically, what we're trying to do is correct a situation that started when we originally bought Lot 51, with the building on it. At that time, the people that owned the building had worked for the people that developed the development. And in return for the labor, the developer said he would give that prior land to the owner. And my wife and I foolishly went along with a promise of resolving the situation with the deed. And over years, we became friends with the developer. And we just took everybody's word that we would resolve. And then I was in business with part of the family, another part of the family, I think they had a hard feeling. So then we offered to buy it. And he agreed to purchase the sales. And we went to Florida on vacation, and when we came back, I got a registered letter saying that he no longer wanted to sell the property because we didn't perform. But before I left on vacation, my attorney sent him a a letter saying we're ready, willing, and able to perform and blah, blah. Anyway, we wound up in court and we won. So the developer and his wife who owned the property met with our attorney, and our attorney suggested we take the easement that would cover, it's on the land, and it included the triangle of land. And we agreed to do that. And eventually the developer passed away. The family sold the protected circle and this property. This is a well, public well system on this property. It doesn't show it on the map, but it shows the protected circle for the well. Anyway, they sold it to the land and her husband. And after they sold that, we offered to buy the triangle so that we can complete our lot. And that's the whole story of 46 years and $40,000. Wow.
All these buildings are already existing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got the approval for the garage in the triangle of land because we had the easement and we went through the town, we got all the permits, we did everything right. And as soon as it was built, the developer tried to take it.
Wow, of course, right?
And we won that case too.
So you own the triangle part now?
We have an easement to it. And we pay the taxes on the garage. And all those conditions were set up when we went to get the permit to build the garage. We made sure that we were in compliance with the town. And like I said, the original developer tried numerous times to find a way to penalize us for what he perceived to be an injustice.
But you've already purchased this and you own it now, the triangle, right?
No, we have a purchase and sales agreement on it.
So can we do a lot line adjustment when he doesn't own both parcels?
We were under the impression we needed to get the lot line adjustment and then purchase the land, because if we don't have the lot line adjustment, it creates issues.
Illegal lot, because it'll create an illegal lot, is that?
Yes.
You can approve the boundary line adjustment with the condition that he executes purchase and sale.
What's wondering? 40 years of it.
My association with this particular developer and the business I was in. Example would be the people that were just here in the U-Haul, and we sold that property to the people that built the self-storage, owned all that property. It was an asset. But I told numerous people I should have an honorary law degree.
The proposed lot line, so this is to combine the lots and create that proposed lot line?
Yes. All it does is our property line, original property line just continues in a straight line down to the road.
Remembering this one.
Oh, okay, so this one segment is,
Yeah.
would be the new.
Yeah.
Excuse me. This proposed lot line, 23 north 04, 13 minutes east, 64.95 feet. Now, this is going to be your lot line if you execute this big purchase and sale. But does it comply to the setback from the rear of the property? Looks like the property line goes through your deck.
Yeah.
Oh, that deck doesn't exist anymore.
Well, you got a two-story wood frame that's right at the edge of it too. Is that an occupied building?
The original developer built that building.
Well, I understand that, but you want that property line to go within the minimum setback.
I'm not sure I understand. The new property line, the extension of the property line?
The proposed lot line, north 250413, 4195 feet.
The Chevron,
And then it extends on to 230413, 60 feet.
I think the 60 feet is the original lot line.
It doesn't say that though.
as you said, your
He's
property
asking,
is,
he's asking this lot line. Is this the new lot line?
No, this lot line was
Is
the
this-
original.
Right, that's the old lot line. This is-
Right here. The new lot line extends from here.
All right, so now I'll show you.
Sure.
So this is the existing, right here, this is the existing lot line now.
Yeah.
That's not changing.
Okay.
Just taking this and extending.
Oh, okay,
Proposed.
okay,
So this is existing, this is. proposed.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Parcel A.
Okay. What's gonna happen with the easement?
It's gonna stay in force.
Who owns the easement? Who owns the property the easement's on?
The people are buying the parcel from the, and
Okay. Okay. I'm satisfied. Thank you. I was down in that area trying to find it, and if I had known it was on the corner of Belvin Drive, I would have, but I didn't find it.
oh,
And it was just one of those things where I didn't go far enough.
it's been a really,
Very.
the history of this is unbelievable, not just my little lot. We talked about. The whole area.
So we would make a motion.
I think it's open to.
yeah, any, open it up to the public, any questions, public? Seeing as there's no, comments from the public, we'll close to the public, we'll go back to the planning board. Thank you.
Now you can go down.
So the motion would be to approve the,
The line adjustment with the condition that they execute the purchase and sale.
as stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
So that it can't be recorded until we do the purchase and sale, and then we should send it back for we get recorded.
Perseverance.
So you said it's conceptual plan.
This is the property at 477 Laconia Road, is now a real estate office, used to be a landscaping business, the way used to be Tilton Landscaping. I have the original
Thank you.
site plan approval for that, and this is total landscaping, total grounds. They're looking to put a landscaping business there, put a landscaping business back there. And I met with the engineer, and I recommended they come to a conceptual, and then they'll submit based on the comments. Well, thank you. So, no application, no public hearing, just.
Just for comment.
um,
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Scott. I'm a landscape architect with Terrain Planning and Design. I represent J.A. Total Properties. I Andrew here, and I think Josh is on Zoom. I don't know if he's going to be able to chime in as well. Andrew and Josh are the owners of J.A. Properties as well as Total Ground Landscaping. I'll let Andrew start with kind of a brief synopsis of what the overall plan, intent is with the purchase of this and development of this property, and I can get into some of the details.
So you'll be real estate company? 477.
Yeah, it says a real estate company on the building. It's that kind of nice building that's.
Yeah.
It abuts Rusty's. On one side, like.
Okay.
Not Rusty's, it's the property after Rusty's.
Andrew Duguay here. So I'm a 10-year Tilton resident, and that's where we started a skate company about 10 years ago. Since then, we have moved a lot that we rented across from the high school, and we are now renting space in Franklin, and we've always had our eye on property as well as staying local to the community of Tilton. We actually had our eye on this property for a number of years, and so we were excited to see it become available in the winter. And so we purchased the property and have owned it since February. And we are looking to obviously keep the existing office space that is there as we're growing. We have about 15 employees, and a year ago we had 10, so that didn't work. We're looking for more structured space. And what we want to do is also put an additional building to house our vehicles on the location. It's a beautiful location, but obviously it's the landscaping around it has deteriorated a lot from the previous owner. And so we do want to kind of restore it back to its original purpose. There, was the Tilton Landscaping Center there. So obviously it fits really well for what we do. We may rent out some of the space, obviously Better Homes and Gardens, but it's not obviously, but they are moving from that occupation, from occupying that location. But we hope to have enough tenant in there at some point and share the office space with them, and then have the building for the housers.
Thanks, Andrew. So, again, I'm landscape architect of the project with engineering and our engineer. And then just give a sort of overview of existing site conditions, the concept layout, and then we have a lot more engineering and due diligence to do to get this through a very sort of site plan application or all that. There we go. So, Route 3 is shown here on the bottom of the page, and Silver Lake Road runs here on the western side of the property, so it's sort of this odd triangular shape. This is the existing building shown here, where the office space is. There's an existing parking lot here. There are 2 curb cuts on Route 3 and 1 on Silver Lake Road. There's sort of this overgrown gravel kind of backyard space. There's an existing wood shed here. There's a little bit of a stream wetland area here on the southern side of the property. We're showing the setback lines, we're showing in orange property lines in purple. Rough landscape along the front of Route 3 here. But given the nature of Program's business, it tends to do a significant upgrade in landscaping and streetscape along Route 3. So the plan is to build a 60 by 60 workshop type building. That would be where their equipment maintenance winter plow trucks, all that kind of stuff gets stored and used as a shop for their crews come in the morning to punch in and leave for the day to do their work. As Andrew mentioned, the office building is going to stay as it exists. The adjacent parking is going to stay as it exists, and we're putting the landscape sort of landscape operations yard in the back of the property, so away from the streetscape side. There'll be some material storage bins. The existing woodshed is going to stay, be a place for employees to park, have access to the new building. And then, as I mentioned, the long-term plan is to do a series of display gardens along Route 3 as sort of a marketing ground to identify landscape construction. The plan is not to have a retail facility here, as it was previously. This is not a place that, public will come to buy plants or mulch or anything like that. The material that will be kept here will be solely for the use of total grounds. There may be a few clients that come through to see some of the display gardens and whatnot. The intent is not to have another retail type business in this location. With that. Yep, so we've had that delineated. Setback lines are shown here. As I mentioned, we've got more engineering and due diligence to do to make sure that we're properly treating stormwater runoff. And all that. Mr. Brown will speak to that in more detail.
One of the other issues too, if you can speak to is, so this is the storage, what are you going to be storing? Salt, what type of material, this is groundwater protection area, so you can have, address those issues as well.
Yeah, that'll be part of the application. So the salt storage will be covered, it'll be contained.
In terms of lighting, you guys don't have any lighting in the building?
There'll be some security lighting on the building itself, and there'll be some low voltage display lighting in the landscape beds. There's no plan to do parking lot lights or, full cut off fixtures of any kind out in the field itself. It's just normal use when there isn't a snowstorm will be, normal, except for the landscape construction day. When there is a snowstorm, prepare the trucks ahead of time, those will all be stored in the building. And Josh Nader can speak to this, but talking to Josh, they're sort of in and out very quickly. So there's a lot of activity happening on site in odd hours during slow they're maintaining properties.
And on the property itself, where do you guys plan to store the salt?
Right now, I believe the plan is to utilize the existing storage shed for the salt bin, but I can
So actually, the ordinance does not allow road salt in bulk. Even, it doesn't say, so some of the ordinance, and you can check the groundwater protection ordinance, it's number 14, 15, I think it's 15. So it's Article 15, and under prohibited uses, outdoor storage of road salt or other de-icing chemicals in bulk. It does go on that some fertilizers nor are allowed if they're in a structured design storage that can't escape and run off. So you would need to get approval to vary from that, or I mean, it's pretty clear, or not have solvents.
They allow them salt if it's in there. You can find it.
That's not how it's worded.
Okay.
If anything in the groundwater protection, so we could look again at the piece of property and see if the whole property is in groundwater protection, or if there's a part of it that is not. Protection map, I believe the whole thing is in groundwater protection.
What's, when you're doing your snow removal, obviously you're dictated by the snow and not by the time of day, business hours. My concern is the neighbors and the noise that you're going to be making. And you're winding up a diesel at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a concern of mine. And I'd like you to address that when you come back. But I am glad that you were going in there. And one more question. So you're gonna cohabit the office building with another tenant, is that correct?
That's
That's the plan. So you're gonna have to provide parking spaces for those tenants that you plan to cohabit with?
Yeah,
Or you think there's enough there?
what's there now meets the ordinance. So
Okay,
we're planning to-
okay.
We weren't planning to add or remove any parking spaces associated with the building itself.
All right.
The new parking spaces would only be for the new shop. For the total.
Okay, good. So, I think this is a good use for this space. And welcome you back to town. Provided that you conform, that would be one, really would. That's a nice piece of property. Hope you do it well.
Would you mind if I address a little bit of your first question about our snow process? I can speak a little bit to our process of snow, because where we are occupied right now is a mix of commercial and residential. Our process has been for years to prepare for snowstorms the day before. So in the event that we do have to go out for snowstorms at night, we tend to fill all of our trucks ahead of time and have the plows ready, have the trucks covered in the garages and lined up, ready to go, so that when the employees get there in whatever hour of the night that the snow falls for us to go out, that we're literally just having our guys, crews come, getting the trucks and pull out, rather than backing up, loading salt and doing stuff that requires a lot.
Okay.
So we would plan on continuing that.
Okay. Sounds good.
So the previous approved site plan had the snow storage area actually up where you have the bins. This is what's it called? Gardens. This is their site. Was, nothing on it.
Yes.
So, actually, there's no storage.
Where the shop. So we're proposing up here.
Yeah. This would be the snow storage area. So this is the grassy area that would remain grass after. And we would push the snow.
Okay, and there's those existing parking spaces that you're showing us still. Oh, actually. And you're not adding any more impervious other than the building?
Correct.
Because again, you'll get that 15%.
My question.
This was the landscaping company's previous site.
They had a lot more building massing with the greenhouses.
Right.
and sort of-
Which have all been taken down,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just the only thing, so the groundwater protection area, storage of fertilizers, washing bin trucks, so fertilizers, all that. So you know that brook goes down, that ends up in this one, and which is our water supply for that.
Total Grounds is not, they're not licensed fertilizer applicators, so there's no fertilizer storage.
So it probably would be part of the conditional, things that you. in future.
Yeah, we do hydro seeding. It's the only thing that we have fertilizer that goes into the hydro seeding tanks, but we don't have a license for, applying for fertilizer chemicals. We store all that indoors because it needs to be part of the hydro seeding material. We store that.
See, and then you stay dry. Works better. The other thing is fuel, because, if you're going to be using equipment, you're going to have to refuel it, whether it be one motors or anything like that, but you just have to say, possibly, a fueling pad or something. You were fueling, so it would be, in that area with that stuff here. Much as, like, if you go to a gas station, through there, so that. Where that would be stored, gas cans.
It doesn't have any.
Well, if you operate mowers and stuff, right?
Yes.
And you have gas cans on the trucks and stuff.
So you're looking for a designated space to put gas cans into the. Is that what you're-
I'm not sure what you actually need to have for that, but where it's a groundwater protection area, it's going to be that much more.
It does address anything over 5 gallons, unless in a freestanding container within a building or above ground with covered secondary containment adequate, contain 110% of the largest container's total storage capacity. Again, if you just look at the groundwater protection, outlines all the substances you might need to address.
It's a recent survey, wetland survey.
Yes, we just had a map, June.
Yeah, June 4th.
Do you plan on keeping any fuel for your trucks on site? Or do you fuel your trucks off site?
We fuel our trucks up.
Okay.
What is the largest consumer fuel you'll keep on site?
I don't know the answer to that question, what we currently do.
Is Josh on? I think Josh is online. Yeah, he is.
I can barely, what was the question?
Is that Josh?
Yeah, that's, if you could,
Josh, the question was, what's the largest fuel storage container you have on site?
So we have fuel cells that go in the back of some of the trucks. The biggest one we have is 90 gallons, I think.
But that's in a truck, it's not necessarily sitting.
Yeah, we don't plan to have off-road fuel tanks or fuel tanks outside of the building or anything like that. We don't have that currently. We fuel up at the gas stations for everything, and then each crew has their own fuel cell that's in the back of a pickup truck or on a trailer that gets delivered to the sites.
Thank you.
Yep.
It is, yeah. So
Dumpsters on there too, where you have your dumpster.
Yes, we typically carry a 30-yard dumpster that we leave at our shop for trash and everything like that. And there's also a 2-yard dumpster up already by the office building for the office staff.
And you're hooked up to the city sewer now? That was a condition of the last approval. They were hooked up within 45 days, so.
What is this proposed area down here in the lower left-hand corner? Explain that to me.
It's still to be designed, but the idea is that it would be a series of display gardens that would show various hardscape materials, pavers, stone, wall material, some plantings. That type of plan would be that photographs would bring some potential clients, walk through the property, show them the samples of different things in the projects, and make a decision as opposed to looking at catalog, take a look at them, and install them.
So you're not going to store any mined earth products on the property, is that right?
There'll be the material that they use in their daily operations, so there'll be some gravel material, some crushed stone material, river stone, that type of thing, bark mulch, solely for the use of total ground,
Okay.
not for sale to.
Composting done on site? So you do your own composting there?
Yeah, we do our own. So if that's not an issue.
I'm not sure.
And I don't think there's anything that's all natural. I don't think there's anything that.
I think they have about nitrogen.
Possibly when you do the submittal as well, it might be a good idea. We've had other landscape companies that actually gave us a list of all the materials will be stored. Kind of nice to have this, we have, rather than getting all these questions of what's being stored. You have water too, it's water? Water.
There's an existing well.
You guys plan to do a workshop?
Hi there. I live just down the street from that property. And I come up Silver Lake Road onto Route 3 oftentimes. I cut across from Belmont or whatever. That is the thing. Line of sight is the issue when you're trying to make a left or a right hand turn. I don't know, you've owned it for a while, you've probably seen some stuff, right? And I see beach umbrellas over here on the lawn. They're not beach umbrellas, I'm thinking they're trees, right? But line of sight wise, it makes it really difficult to get out of that road. Is there any way to keep the line of sight open for traffic?
The proposed landscape beds won't block the line of sight. And
No.
These trees would be deciduous trees, so they'd be like a street tree. So the branches would be minimum of 6 feet from the ground, so it meets the sight line requirements.
Okay, as long as you can see.
Yep.
The requirements and the practical application, trying to see cars doing 55, 60, 40 mile an hour zones. Line of sight gets really important. There's been some vicious accidents. They just recently put up that flashing light right at the road, and no offense.
I'll second that.
So if you take that into consideration, that would be great.
Yeah, and it's important for us too, right? We're gonna be turning in out there.
And there you go.
One more thing was on that intersection, whether you could straighten that out. I know there was talk about making it into a T intersection.
There was a lot of talk about it,
Like lose.
the solution currently is the flashing light. But if that doesn't do anything, there's a proposal to kind of straighten out, make your triangle a real weird shape and kind of straighten that road up so it's more of a 90-degree turn. I don't know what the state has, what the state's about. Also, when you're turning there, you can either turn into Silver Lake Road or it's a free-for-all at the Smoke and Barley. There might be, 5 or 6 cars coming and turning, and directional signals mean nothing. It really is harsh.
Yeah.
In that neighborhood.
Nice.
So they wouldn't do that. That was part of their fact-finding mission, and they did traffic counts and all of these things. And I think they wanted to do something with the Smoke and Barley, which is gonna help a lot, but that doesn't look here, but straightening out the road, is my point. It wouldn't encroach on any of your stuff. Maybe that one tree, but I'm not a traffic engineer. I was involved in those talks a couple years.
They had some plans though.
Yeah.
That you could look at, so you might want to get the passes. Because that
If
might
you get
happen
in
in the
touch
future.
with the DOT guy, the DOT number 3, just casually ask.
Really nice.
Any other questions from the board?
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
No, it's unworkable.
Okay. That sounds like-
So we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. July 15th.
Well, I'm gonna right. I'm gonna go, Daddy. I have to go on this, Daddy.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Anyone wants a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
John, did I get a vote, Neil? John, motion to adjourn, did you vote?
Yeah, very good.
Okay, thanks.
I've got a couple.
Where are they meeting here? Stand there.
What's it for?
Didn't they have sessions in, already? No?
No, nobody signed up.
It was rescheduled.
What is it?
It's a charrette is a process to get public opinion on.
We had something
You
similar.
know, he was very good.
Couple of-
He was very good.
Couple of the same before we picked them up here.
We all know that.
Oh,
I believe that our
I mean, this
town.
James, James and Chip.
Just in case.
I'm still secretary.
Yeah, she had.
I think I still am. No, am I on the budget?
Yeah.
I was secretary.
You did good. Did you tell her anything?
He's gotta read these now. Tell them.
You did it.
Where is she living?